vlog. So today it is cold and rainy outside here in the Bay Area. So whenever that happens, that is maintenance day for us. Just a couple of things on the bike that I've been holding off on here for a little bit. We've noticed recently that on a cold morning, the battery will hesitate a bit in getting us started. It's not real bad. I had the battery tested and it's got some life in it, but this is really a preventative thing. I don't want to get out on the road and have a problem with it. So we figured we'd go ahead and take care of it. At the same time, I managed to melt my battery tender cable. It fell on the exhaust after a trip and literally melted it. So we're going to go ahead and take care of both those problems here today, since we got a little bit of time. Now, I got to tell you, I'm not a mechanic. I don't pretend to be a mechanic. This is basic kind of stuff that I think pretty much anybody can do. We'll get into it, see what needs to be done. It should be a fairly quick exercise to get this taken care of. But let's dig in. Let's get started. All right, so to get us started, we've got a new Harley Davidson AGM battery. I went ahead and decided to go with AGM as opposed to the lithium battery and that sort of thing. There are some benefits from what I understand. The lithium battery will last, well, it's supposed to last longer. I don't know if I believe it or not. It is smaller and lighter. That is a heavy battery. But, you know, for our uses and the fact that it doesn't seem to be worth the extra cost, to be honest. So I don't think we're going to go with it. So we just got a standard AGM battery. The cable, we actually went with the LED battery charging harness cable. And we went with this one just because it has a little indicator that tells you if the battery is low on charge, which I thought was kind of cool, and it's only a couple of bucks more. So, alrighty, so it's really not terribly difficult, just a couple of simple tools. We start out with a simple Phillips screwdriver. We use this to remove the seat. And then you'll need a torque bit, a T40 torque bit specifically, to remove the ECM from the battery tray. And that's really it, so it's pretty straightforward. All right, so first step is really pretty simple. Got to take the seat off. And you'd think that might be complicated, but it's really pretty darn simple. If you look here, you'll see this little flap, and this little flap keeps junk and so forth from getting in there. And behind that, if you can see inside, there's a little screw, and it's just a simple Phillips head screw. So first we're going to take that off. Try not to drop the little screw, which I always seem to manage to do. And there you go. Pretty straightforward. And literally, one little gasket right there. And it literally pops right off. Alright, so just pull it off the side band. Alright, so we'll pull this out. Be careful not to scratch anything. Pretty straightforward. This R22 Road Glide has the smart siren installed on it as well for security. So we're going to have to disable that to make sure it doesn't go off when we swap the battery. So to do that, first thing we got to do, well, first you see the 50 amp fuse. That's the main bike fuse. First step is we'll turn the bike on. And once the bike is on, then we'll put the key fob near the sensor, and then pull the 50 amp fuse. And that's really all there is to it. That disables the alarm and makes sure that the siren doesn't go off whilst we're working here. Okay, so to get to the battery, you got to remove the tray that sits on top of the battery. It's real simple. There's these two bolts. Really just take your torque wrench, pull them out. And that will release the tray. And it's really just the two bolts. With that done, this is a little bit trickier than it looks. There's actually, if you can see here, there's a little metal connector. So to get this tray off, you need to pull it up and push the connector. And that removes the tray, that gets you to the battery. So it's a little bit of a trick to get this off. And you might have to just kind of tweak it a little bit, but you don't have to disconnect any of the wiring or any of that kind of stuff. It's really just a matter of getting it off of this little metal clip and then pulling it up. And that gets you access to the battery. And from here, it gets pretty straightforward. It's simply a matter of simple Phillips screwdriver. Start with the positive, of course. Loosen that guy up. Okay. Now you can see these two leads. Those, in my case, are for the heated equipment that I have installed on this particular bike. So we'll go ahead, remove that, set that out of the way. You can see the terminal connection here. Go ahead and release that. And then we'll take the ground off. Same approach, just simply unscrew the bolt. And that's it, pretty straightforward. Now, these batteries are a lot heavier than you might think. So just be aware that's going to take a little bit of elbow grease to get this thing out of here. It actually does have a strap, which when we install the new one, we'll make sure that the strap is in there. Okay, so now it's a matter of putting the new battery in, which is relatively straightforward. One thing to keep in mind is there's this handy dandy strap. But this really helps a lot because it'll allow you to take the weight of the battery and just kind of set it in there. These batteries are pretty heavy. So just as we pull the other battery out, new battery goes in. Now make sure, of course, your positive and your negative are lined up appropriately. And you just want to check that before you put the battery in there. You actually use that strap to help set this in here a bit easier. So now that the battery's in, it's just a matter of reconnecting the terminals. In this case, terminals are clean, no real corrosion. So we can use the existing screws that were on the battery before we started. The battery did come with new screws, but there's no corrosion on these cables. This is a pretty clean environment, so there's probably no need to do that. Just like you would with a car battery or any other battery, start out with the positive and then do the negative. This part is probably the easiest of the whole job. As you remember, on this particular bike, I have both heated gear, and I want to also install the new battery tender. So we're going to do that at the same time. Relatively straightforward process, positive, negative, etc. So we're going to go ahead and make sure that our wiring is lined up correctly. So here is the front heated gear terminal. But for right now, we'll just line that up along with the tender. And then we have the rear heated gear connector. Same deal, line those up. All right, so it took a minute to find a good mounting point for this. There wasn't an obvious place to put it. The old tender actually is wired through the main harness, which a lot of work to get that. So this may not be best practice, but it did work. So I just routed it through the top of this side cradle where I had my alarm coming through. And I'll wrap it through here, and then I'll just tie this guy off. So it may not be perfect. I can't say this is recommended, but it'll meet my need. So anyway, we're gonna go with that. Tighten these down. Making sure that none of your wires are crimped or would be bent when you install the cradle back. Alrighty, so we're almost done. All hooked back up. The wiring's nice and tight and clean. So really, the last step in the process then is the most difficult. Kidding. Just put the seat back on. We'll make sure everything's working. Put our panels back on, saddlebags back on, fire it up, make sure it works, and we should be good to go. And the hardest part of this bit is just lining up the seat with the little metal clip that holds everything in. Line that up real quick. Sometimes I think this is the hardest part of the job. So just buttoning things back up. Bit of a rookie mistake, forgot to put the fuse in. Don't do that. Wired the tender, and we'll just route it. It's pretty straightforward. Just route it here, so it comes out right about in front of the passenger footrest. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. The old tender, I left it in place. I just routed it into here. And the reason I did that is it's wired directly to the wiring harness onto the battery. It's not just on separate leads. And I thought tearing all that apart is probably a bigger job than I wanted to take on. So I'm going to leave that here, have the new tender come here. Notice it's blinking red because the brand new battery needs to be charged. But let me know what you guys think. I think it'll be okay. It's certainly probably the better way, if I had the time and the mechanical knowledge, to pull the wiring harness and redo it correctly. But I think this will be fine. I'm going to go ahead and attach the panels, and then I'll attach the, then I'll put the luggage back on, the saddlebags back on, and then we should be good. Just fire it up and see where things are at. Okay, just make sure this guy tucks in there nicely. See, this guy will come down here. So when it's not in use, it's out of the way. And this time it's not going to fall down here. We won't melt it with any luck. Try not to do that. I think this will work. It's nicely placed. It comes out here for charging, and then tuck it up under there for riding. I think that'll be pretty safe. I don't see it falling out of there. Built here. Well, reasonably okay with it being there. Alrighty, let's get our saddlebag back on. Then, just like before, pretty straightforward. Line these legs up. And we go good. I think we're done. It was a lot of fun. You know, it took, as I said, took maybe 30 minutes to take care of this, maybe a little bit longer. But we were filming, so that adds time to things. But it's relatively straightforward. Now, the reason I did this was not to teach you anything that you probably don't know or you couldn't find in a YouTube video from a mechanic that is much more talented than I am. In fact, I'm not a mechanic in any sense of the word. But the point really I was trying to make in doing this was just show people that basic maintenance and basic mechanics on a motorcycle, if you can do that yourself, saves you a lot of time and a lot of hassle. You know, changing the battery out, changing your oil, it can add up, it can become costly. And it's really kind of work you can do yourself. And that's not to say you don't ever want to take your bike to a mechanic. You want them to, you know, give the bike a thorough look over and test everything out, make sure it's all good. I do the same thing. But when you can change out, you know, some basic stuff and deal with the consumables, again, saves you a lot of time, saves you a lot of energy, saves you a lot of dollars. So that's why that's why I put this together. I hope you guys found this useful. Hopefully it shows that it's not that hard to do this kind of work. Appreciate you coming along. I think it's time to go out now. It seems to have stopped raining for a moment, so I think it's time to go out and test ride the bike, get some lunch, enjoy the rest of the afternoon. Appreciate your time. Take care. Peace.